You know, for an evening that started out so badly, it has definite possibilities. No, before you drink your talk, say. No, I do.
You know, on second thought,
Yes?
I really can't stay.
Baby, it's cold outside.
I've got to go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
This evening has been
Hoping that you drop
so
in.
very nice.
I'll hold your hands. They're just like
My
ice.
mother will start to worry.
Beautiful, what's your
My
hurry?
father will be pacing the floor.
Listen to the fireplace
So
roar.
really, I'd better scurry.
Beautiful, please don't
Well,
hurry.
maybe just to have a drink more.
Put some records on while I
The
fall.
neighbors might
But baby, it's bad out there.
say, what's in this
No
drink?
cabs to be had out there.
I wish I knew how.
Your eyes are like stars
to
right now.
break the spell.
I'll take your hat. Your hair looks
I
swell.
ought to say no,
Mind if
sir.
I move in
At least I'm
closer?
gonna say that I
What's the
tried.
sense of hurting my
I
pride?
really can't
Oh,
say.
baby, don't hold out,
Oh,
baby.
it's cold outside.
Are you offended by the first minute and a half of the Agree or Disagree the podcast? We'll get into that. Welcome to Agree or Disagree the podcast. My name is Kevin Olenek. It has been a while since I have been able to record a podcast. We'll get into that a little bit in this podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at KVOLE. Find me as a friend on Facebook, Kevin Olenek, like Agree or Disagree the podcast on Facebook. You can also subscribe on iTunes as well, Agree or Disagree the podcast, as well as iHeartRadio and Spotify now as well. And it is, as I said, it's been a while since we have chatted a bit on Agree or Disagree the podcast. We'll get into that a little bit. And we're also going to talk about Christmas or seasonal decorations. Is there a way to make them more diverse? Or is it appropriate for us to make them more diverse? And what is the role of the news media? Is it to make you think or make you feel? We'll talk about that, an interesting TED Talk from Eric Bischoff, former wrestling guy, wrestling character, had an interesting perception. And we'll talk about that as well. But the big controversy is this song that you heard as we started. Baby, It's Cold Outside.
I simply must go.
Baby, it's cold outside.
The answer is no.
Baby, it's cold outside.
So welcome has
How
been
lucky that you dropped
so
in.
nice and warm.
Look out the window at that
My
storm.
sister will be
Gosh, your lips look
My
delicious.
brother will be there at the door.
Waves up on a tropical
My
shore.
big dad's mind is
Gosh, your lips are
Or
delicious.
maybe just a cigarette more.
Never such a blizzard
I've
before.
got to get
But baby,
home.
you freeze out there.
Say, lend me a
It's
call.
up to your knees out there.
You've really been
I
glad.
thrill when you touch my
Why
hand.
don't you see?
How can you do this thing to me?
Bound to be talked
Think
tomorrow.
of my lifelong
At least
sorrow.
there will be plenty of clothes.
If you got pneumonia and
I
die,
really can't
get over
stay.
that old doubt,
Oh, but
baby.
it's cold outside.
Yes, this classic Christmas song that we have been listening for over 50 years is being banned, or radio programmers have decided not to play it over the Christmas holiday due to the fact that of the lyrics of the Baby It's Cold Outside, the original lyrics. So maybe you missed this, but let's let's read the lyrics, and then by Dean Martin, Marilyn Maxwell, and let's read them for us to get into this conversation. Verse 1, I really can't say, but baby, it's cold outside. I've got to away, but baby, it's cold outside. This evening has been hoping you'd drop in. So very nice. I'll hold your hands, they're just like ice. So my mother will start to worry. Beautiful, what's your hurry? My father will be pacing the floor. Listen to the fireplace roar. So really I'd bear it or scurry. Beautiful, please don't hurry. But maybe just a half drink more. Put on some records while I pour. The neighbors might think, baby, it's bout out there. So what's in this drink? No cabs to be had out there. I wish I knew how. Your eyes are like starlight now. To break this spell, I'll take your hat. Your hair looks swell. I ought to say, no, sir. Mind if I move in closer? At least I'm going to say that I tried. What's the sense in hurting my pride? I really can't say, oh, baby, don't hold out. Baby, it's cold outside. Verse 2, I simply must go, but baby, it's cold outside. The answer is no, but baby, it's cold outside. Your welcome has been. How lucky that you dropped in. So nice and warm. Look out the window at the storm. My sister will be suspicious. Gosh, your lips look delicious. My brother will be there at the door, waves upon the tropical shore. My maid's aunt's mind is vicious. Gosh, your lips are delicious. But maybe just a cigarette more. Never such a blizzard before. Say, lend me I've got to get home, but baby, you'd freeze out there. Say, lend me a coat. It's up to your knees out there. You've really been grand. I thrill when you touch my hand, but don't you see? How can you do this thing to me? There's bound to be talk tomorrow. Think about lifelong sorrow. At least there will be plenty applied if you get ammonia and died. I really can't say get over that old out. Baby, it's cold. Baby, it's cold outside. These lyrics from a number of years ago have been deemed in 2018-2019 eyes too offensive and inappropriate in the what is now being called the Me Too era. So I read those lyrics, and I hope I tried to make that entertaining for you. I don't know if it was or not. That's fine. But to give you a sense of what those lyrics were about. Now let's talk about this song, Baby It's Cold Outside. The song was written by a husband and wife to sing at Christmas parties. You can either see the video on YouTube. It's a playful, fun, imaginative little fun song. It's fun, it's playful. You could even suggest it's flirtatious. I would imagine that these two wrote this experience based on experiences that they had in their own life. Most art, most songs, most choruses, most lyrics are based on some sort of personal experience. Wouldn't be surprised here. The song was for them and it was fun. I have to tell you, I don't see anything on here that I find particularly offside. In comparison, especially to some of the other music and entertainment out there that we see on a regular basis, the answer is no. If you're going to maybe push, maybe you might go with the lyric, the answer is no. I ought to say no. The answer is no. But that is not, there is nothing forceful in the response to the husband to the answer is no. I simply must go, but baby, it's cold outside. The answer is no, but baby, it's cold outside. Your welcome has been. How lucky that you dropped in. So there's nothing there to me that feels intimidating or unconsent has been going on. It's almost to me that she wants to stay, but is unsure if she should stay, not because this man that she is with is dangerous, but really, if you look at the song, she goes on to say, my sister will be suspicious. My brother will be there at the door. She's more concerned about the views of everybody else about the relationship than anything dangerous or worrisome. If I'm the artist and you're telling me that this song that I wrote that was a playful combination between a husband and a wife is deemed some sort of anthem for something of sexual misconduct of some kind, I might, and I pardon my language for saying this, I might say, fuck off. Pardon my French there. I don't know if I could say this on the Powercast 97.9, which, by the way, we're on every Wednesday. Hopefully you're enjoying there as well. Forgot to mention that. But who are you to tell me what my experience is like? And who are you really to tell me that you are looking at, that we need to look at this in a different way because we need to teach women how, and men how to behave? This song is not an example of that for you. I'm sorry. We'll get into that. But this song, I'm sorry. And this song is not offensive in this way. And you may be angry what I am saying here, but really read the original lyrics. Look at what has been said, and you'll find that I'm probably more right than you care to admit. That's the first part that I'd like to talk about in this here. I'd like to call this the 2018 Starbucks Red Cup controversy. Do you remember Starbucks Red Cup controversy? There was a guy out there suggesting that Starbucks was being offensive because there wasn't Christmas decorations on a coffee cup. This is what we need in 2018 to get our Christmas controversy on. But let's have a chat, because radio programmers are making decisions about what should or should not be played on the radio. Now, if you want to make the argument that this song isn't popular anymore, then okay, sure, I'll grant that that's your reason. But that wasn't the reason that was given by a number of radio stations, including CBC, who took some heat. CBC here in Canada, for those that are not in Canada as we are listening to this, let's pull this up. Because CBC was one of the ones that had a controversy about it, which, by the way, as of right now, as of this recording, has reinstated Baby It's Cold Outside. Just breaking news as we are recording this, this impact. Amid audience input, we'll hear in a statement today, last week, this is from Chuck Thompson, CBC Head of Public Affairs. Last week, we decided to press pause to consider the different points of view on playing Baby It's Cold Outside. Because we value audience input, which was overwhelmingly to include the song, we have put it back on the playlist where it's been removed. Appreciating not everyone interprets lyrics the same way, listeners may wish to skip the song, as we understand not everyone will agree with this decision. Fine, great. There we go. This song is back on. But I still think that the conversation around where we went with this needs to still happen. So, and we need to have this conversation around media consumption. Because in one sense, we're having this argument about a song called Baby It's Cold Outside. And in another sense, we're watching a show like Game of Thrones. And I'm not putting myself on a self-righteous spectacle here. Because I watch a bit of Game of Thrones. I know a little bit what's going on there. I watch other stuff that is probably not in my Christian service, for some of my conservative Christians friends out there, pure or uplifting or whatever that is. We all have different art and different taste. But if you're going to get outraged on Baby It's Cold Outside, what about shows like Game of Thrones, which does have rape in them? What about lyrics from Nirvana that has a song that plays regularly on radio with the lyrics literally in the song, "Rape Me"? Why is that okay? Why Why do we get to pick and choose which one is this? What about the 50 Shades series of either books or movies? 125 million copies of that book was sold. Why is that okay? And we're challenging Baby It's Cold Outside. There's also been a number of different musicians out there from a number of different genres, not just one, but a number of different genres out there that have had some very questionable behavior, very questionable lyrics. I brought up Nirvana. There's been some other ones as well. Red Hot Chili Peppers has not had some issues with their lyrics. Why is that okay and we're challenging Baby It's Cold Outside? Like, why are we getting so what's with this song specifically that other songs don't have? I feel like the argument about the 2018 eyes and the fact that we feel progressive, I feel that's, I sometimes wonder if maybe we need to have a conversation around that, because I don't know if we are. I don't think we're as enlightened as we would like to think that we are, especially if we have a bigger long-term view about what we look at. Many of this, it's in some ways far worse than before. So let's have a look at that. Let's challenge that. As we go through this start of 2019, it's going to be interesting to hear some of the lyrics. Because to me, there's things far worse than Baby It's Cold Outside being played on the radio and not having this discussion. So there we go on that. And I want to have a conversation, and this hasn't been mentioned too much, but this is something I do want a conversation about, and this is about radio programming. Earlier this year in Canada, there was a band called Headley. Lead singer Jacob Hokarn has a sexual assault charge on him, and they were taken off the air because of well-known issues with this. And many Canadian radio stations have decided to take Headley off the air. As a matter of fact, there was a DJ, and I interviewed her on Agree or Disagree the podcast. You can find that. Hashtag shameless plug with Katie Summers about experience that she had with Jacob Hokarn. Talking about how offensive that band was and how they behaved. And I'm not going to suggest in any way that Headley should not be taken off the air. I think with a lot of this misconduct, I think it's a fair game. I understand the pressure of that. I understand that there was a lot of anger towards the band Headley and their behavior, and it was well known what was going on, and it was fair. But again, to go back to the conversation we just had, what about what's the standard that we have? We had situations with other bands that were like Red Hot Chili Peppers. We'll even look at some of the bands that had sexual misconduct accusations or sexual assault accusations as we go through this here. The question was only brought up by one or two people. But why one band is getting play and one is not? There's a website out there called the Long List of Industry Figures Accused of Sexual Misconduct, and you got Nick Carter, Backstreet Boys, accused of rape. Evan Stevens Hall from Pine Grove accused of sexual coercion. Jesse Lacey from Brand New accused of sexual abuse and solicitation of explicit photographs from a minor. Pardon me. Ben Hopkins, Matt Mandolin accused of sexual assault. Alex Calder accused of sexual assault. Ruben Gallego accused of sexual assault. Ethan Cath from Crystal Castles accused of sexual assault and abuse of a former bandmate, Alice Glass. Jake McElfresh from Front Porch Stepped, accused of lascivious communication with underage girls. Ian Watkins from Lost Prophets, currently in prison for multiple sexual offenses. Kirk Webster, a publicist, accused of sexual assault. Twiggy Ramirez from Marilyn Manson, accused of rape. R. Kelly, accused of several sexual relationships with teens. So Sean White from Bad Things, that goes on and on. Band members accused of sexual harassment from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Def Jam Recordings, Russell Simmons, accused of sexual misconduct. Now, okay, you can say to me, well, they're all different in some ways, and I would probably agree with you. But is this decision to ban or play music really a moral decision? Or is it a business decision? And what I mean by that is they know that some bands, that we turn a blind eye because the band is popular. Or the band gets air and we enjoy their music. I don't see the radio programming industry as a hugely moral, on a moral high ground here. That's just me. That's just my perspective. And I do think that that's a fair question. I'm not saying, do we need to have a look at the conduct of band members before we play them on the music? You might argue, well, we may have no music on the radio. Entirely possible. I don't know. But that's not a conversation a lot of people are having. Not that I've noticed. So there we go. And now, I do also want to bring up this theory about what banning or taking this song off the air, Baby It's Cold Outside, is meant to do. So the idea of taking Baby It's Cold Outside off the air is to address the culture that we are in now. So a song that was written in the mid-1950s, 60s, compared to now, is supposed to have some sort of impact. If we take this song off the air, it will change the perception of what happens in terms of culture. And I'm going to challenge that. And you may say to me that I'm a straight white male, and I can't have much say into that. But I would suggest that you listen to a lot of women that have said that. Women that have experienced sexual assault, women that are survivors, are saying, if you think that this song is going to change anything, you're wrong. And I have to back that up. And I would suggest that we listen to some of them. We had a podcast with Kristen Rayworth on discussing those kind of things. You can listen to that as well. It's more than changing a song, what songs are on the air. It's going to practical areas and dealing with some practical issues that I do think need to be addressed. I'm not saying that they don't. We still have a lot of work to do. But it's not going to stop because a song is not going to be aired. So, yeah, wouldn't worry about that. In Canada, though, I would ask, the question that I would be having and I would ask is, why aren't we talking more about Rona Ambrose's bill to have more training on sexual assault, dealing with survivors of sexual assault and people in places of authority, politicians, judges, police, management and companies? Bring that into the forefront. In 2019, there will be a number of elections, including a provincial one in Alberta, a federal one in Canada, and probably a couple of other ones. There's a possibility of a provincial election even here in BC as well. Why don't we bring that to the forefront? Let's discuss that more. Or keep this conversation going about some of the things that are very valuable around this. But this song, Baby It's Cold Outside, having this issue and thinking that it's going to be a solution. Sorry, folks. I don't think that that's true. And by the way, CBC has decided again to play the song. There we go. So let me know what you think about that. Baby, it's cold outside. Back on the air as we go through things with that. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the media, shall we? And when we talk about that, I'm going to play for you a little bit of a interesting YouTube talk from a man by the name of Eric Bischoff. If you don't know who Eric Bischoff is, he is a former wrestling character. I think that's the best way that I can describe him. He was a wrestling character originally with the AWA. He was an interviewer. He worked under Vern Gagne. I mispronounce his name. Then he moved on to be in charge of WCW. And for a number of weeks, they actually beat Monday Night Raw in the ratings. And there was that in the mid-90s, there was the Monday Night Wars with WCW had Monday Nitro, WWE had Monday Night Raw. The WCW had the NWO, which was a pretty popular bad guy group with Hulk Hogan and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. And Eric Bischoff created that. And 83 straight weeks, WCW defeated the WWE. And this story that is always kind of being played, and whether you agree or disagree or not, or you know your wrestling history or not, almost put the WWE out of business. The WWE had to make some changes in the way that they were addressing their programming as well. And it was quite fascinating to watch. And so Eric Bischoff is not in the wrestling industry anymore. He's moved on. He last finished up with TNA as a character. He was in WWE as a character. He's doing a number of producing things and a number of things that he's been up to. But he's talked about how the news media is stealing some things from the pro wrestling playbook. And we're going to play a little bit of that for here, but it's an interesting little concept. It's interesting to kind of hear this. It may seem a little bit accusative. At first you may think that this is a little bit ridiculous. But let's try to listen to this here as I just set this up. So let's hear a little bit from Eric Bischoff now, and let's hear what he has to say.
45 or 50 years old may remember Vern Gagne. Vern was a professional wrestling promoter based out of Minneapolis. He hired me. For what reason, I have no idea, but he did. And Vern used to promote a lot here in Chicago. He had wrestlers like Dick the Bruiser, and Nick Bockwinkel, and Ray Stevens, and the Crusher, and he was a big fixture here. They had wrestling matches at Wrigley Field, for crying out loud. And wrestling has been around for a long, long time. In fact, when it comes to content, and the content that we've all become familiar with throughout our lives, professional wrestling and news are the two most enduring forms of content that there are. And before the night is over, I'm going to try to convince you that they're far more similar than you think. Now, one of the things I learned working for Vern was, in fact, it was one of the first things he taught me, I remember, because for a long time, Vern didn't want me anywhere near kind of the back door of professional wrestling, the backstage area. That was off limits. It was a secret. It was kind of like magicians. They like to keep their secrets. So he didn't share a lot of things with me. But one of the things he did share with me as I started producing for him was that when it comes to the audience, it doesn't really matter if they love a wrestler or hate them, as long as they feel passionately one way or the other. Business would be good.
It's an interesting thing that he is saying there, and you can go on YouTube and you can hear the entire Eric Bischoff TED Talk. It's interesting. And you kind of look at how news is portrayed. And for those who don't watch pro wrestling much or think that it's ridiculous or whatever, basically pro wrestling goes on the same concept that most of your TV shows go by. There's a good person, there's a bad person, you boo the bad person, you cheer on the good person, and there's some sort of emotion. Wrestling has done that very well. One of the reasons to go back to where WWE made the turn is a character like Stone Cold Steve Austin was a character that was enduring. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson caused emotion. Villains like Triple H caused emotion. The NWO, when they were successful, caused emotion. Hulk Hogan caused emotion. Now look at some of the news people now. And you look at a guy specifically like Donald Trump. He causes emotion. Now, I think that Donald Trump, in my personal opinion, with all due respect, I think that there's a number of problems with Donald Trump that causes a lot of sincere human emotion. But it's interesting to kind of look at the news media and what you expect them to do. Because his argument in this TED Talk is that the news media's role and why news media is out there is to create you not to think, not to critically think. This is his suggestion, but to feel. Now, we did this as a poll on Facebook, and most people did agree that the news media does make you more feel than think. But is that actually wrong? For a moment, think about some of the stories out there about people that have been unjustly attacked. There was a couple years ago out here in Vancouver on the SkyTrain, there was a young Muslim woman that was being harassed on the train publicly by a man. It caused a lot of anger from a lot of people from the public because no one did anything except one gentleman. It caused some anger, and it motivated us to do something about it. There was another incident a few years ago out here in Vancouver when a man was videotaping making a number of racist comments to a parking lot security guard that caused a lot of emotion. You saw that in a recent video with Denny's. You see that with a number of videos. Or people dealing with stuff, like real life stuff. Having a tough time at Christmas, dealing with a major illness and not sure what to do, being impoverished, homeless. Feeling something, I think, allows people to respond in action. Now, I'm not saying that thinking is wrong. I do think it is very important to think. And, I think but at times we need to have a critical thinking perspective. But I also think that there's a power in allowing people to have that emotion to cause some sort of action. So maybe does the news media right now cause more feeling than thinking? It's quite probable. It would be nice, I guess, if we had an entire combination of feeling and thinking perfectly. But we aren't wired that way. There are some people more think in the thinking school than the feeling school. There are some people more in the feeling school than the thinking school. There's a bunch of books out there that you can read about that. Introverts, extroverts, feeling, thinking, all of that sort of stuff. We don't have time to get into that into this specific podcast. But emotion isn't necessarily bad. Even with the stuff that I do when I do the agree or disagree statements on Facebook, at times it gets testy. And I admit at times that I was like, that may get too far. But there's nothing wrong with emotion. There's nothing wrong with feeling something about something and hearing a passionate, if even angry position. There are times I think that we prefer to live in our own bubble, whether that's one side or the other. being a former part or part of the Christian community, I know that was something that was of guilt, and I admit was a bit guilty. I was preferred to hang out with the Christians instead of those non-Christians. Remember that old Simpsons episode? Let me get out that non-Christian Rolodex from Reverend Lovejoy. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help you grow. It gets you into your own language. Now, I do think that it is important to have a supportive network of people that are like-minded, for sure. But I do think it's important to step out of that bubble into some other bubble, into other communities, and learn and connect with each other. And not necessarily close that off. So I think that there is a power in both feeling and thinking. And I do think it's also interesting to see how perceptions, even media, and even politics, in terms of how they will portray the characters. In Canada, I think the conservative side has tried to paint Justin Trudeau as a villain that hates Canada. There are the articles or the commercials around Shaping Alberta with that says Rachel Notley and her friend Justin Trudeau are trying to basically destroy Alberta. We must stop them! Stop them now! It causes an emotion for people to respond to Shaping Alberta. The way that Jason Kenney talks responds in that way. The way that a lot of politicians speak about their opponents is to get you to respond in a way that will make you feel in some way. If you go back to the little debate that happened about the proportional representation here in BC, which, by the way, we did not get into, but that I wanted to review, but that was I didn't see a lot of value in that debate. But John Horgan said, if you're not on proper rep is woke. That caused an emotion, caused a laughter. There's times when it's good to laugh and cry. And there's also times when it's good to think. Not necessarily anything wrong with that. I do think, but I think what Eric Bischoff's point is that about the way that we characterize people, I think is interesting. But I don't necessarily think that the news media causing people to feel is necessarily wrong. You may disagree with me on that, and that's fine, and that's okay. Another story that came out a couple of days ago here in Victoria, as I wanted to get back into the Christmas conversation, is a story in Victoria, British Columbia. For those that are listening in the States, again, Victoria is on the Vancouver Island, one of the top tourist destinations in the world. It's a beautiful place. Do recommend you check it out. Nice, quiet area. I describe it a little bit different in Vancouver. Vancouver is busy, and Victoria is a bit quiet. But it's a very beautiful area. A lot of people really enjoy it. But they have sometimes they have some ideas out there that are a bit different. And a counselor by the name of Ben Islet has suggested that we examine the look of our decorations. Maybe they're too Christmassy. He feels that they should look at adding some diversity of cultural elements in seasonal decorations. He talked about the poinsettia, and it's from Islet, and he's quoted here in the Vancouver Sun saying, "I don't want a poinsettia. It's a symbol of the Christian faith." That's, I guess, his prerogative. But he wants a more of an investigation on this. It's in some ways there has been a lot of backlash to Ben Islet, on this, saying that it's one of those things that really isn't necessary. But on the other hand, maybe it's not such a bad idea to have a good look at. And, I'm not one of those, I'm not one that has got up and necessarily look at from other cultures. When I worked at State Polytechnic, we talked about, there was a number of people, we tried to keep it the happy holidays because we knew that a number of cultures celebrate different holidays. That's just the reality of it is, whether that's Hanukkah, Christmas, Eid, whatever. But there was a lot of them that came up to us and wished us a Merry Christmas because they knew that we celebrated Christmas. When I worked as at a call center, and we sold medication to people in the United States, and this was a number of years ago, we had a chat. We talked with a number of people from Florida, and they were offended by me saying Merry Christmas because they're Jewish and they don't celebrate Christmas. So I posted this on my Facebook, and we got some interesting comments, and I just want to read some of them for you. Here's one. This appears to be one man's issue with what apparently are Christian decorations, except they aren't. Christmas trees, at the very least, have pagan origins, not Christian. He's obviously bothered by things that represent what he sees as a Christian holiday. However, Christmas, while celebrated by Christians as a religious holiday, it is also celebrated by numerous other people as a feel-good holiday about gift-giving and loved ones. Victoria isn't putting up major scenes in their town square, just decorating a tree. Another comment talks about what is going on in Edmonton, and the city of Edmonton has a permanent interfaith display in City Hall and lights the high-level bridge to mark various holidays, including but not limited to Christmas, Ramadan, Hanukkah, Diwali, etc. The legislator has a menorah candle. But what people also have to keep in mind is that in some religions, displays of the face are against teachings or considered idolatrous, or can be expressed through decoration. So before any city starts going gung-ho for decorative diversity, they should meet with the various groups to find out what is considered appropriate. And what's so interesting about that comment is, I wonder sometimes in our midst to being diverse and accepting and making sure that everyone is feeling welcome, that there is, at times we step on toes and assume offense when maybe it's not there. Maybe for some people, they're not offended by other cultures that don't celebrate Christmas, aren't offended, and they don't celebrate Christmas the way that Christians or people from our culture celebrate it, but they may want to just enjoy for the moment. As an example, when snow hit in BC here for the first time in Vancouver, I just wanted to embrace that because I knew that was something unique. Maybe for newcomers in our culture, it's something unique. And we don't necessarily need to make a huge change to it to accommodate. But I mean, it's important to understand that. But maybe are we overstepping or understepping there? I'm really curious about that. It'll be interesting to see what you hear about, what you think about that. Am I outraged by it? Some are. No. I mean, there are other issues in Victoria that need to be dealt with, or bigger issues out there. Probably yes. But it's something, I guess, to think about going forward. And it was something that we can talk about. And also, you may have noticed I have not done podcasts in a while. My last recorded podcast before we did the hockey podcast was on November the 10th. And it's been a bit of a rougher go as we've gone through here. Had to move back into Vancouver. I've decided to move back to the Vancouver area as I feel like there's more opportunity for me to do stuff here than there was in Kamloops in terms of jobs and things like that. I can't be doing podcasts for free. We'll be having a website coming out in 2019 where you can, if you wish, make support for that. There's a cost to living. But also, it's in terms of mental health, and we've had a number of conversations about mental health on this podcast before. Putting yourself in a position where it's lonely is, from my personal perspective, if I can be a bit open as we end this conversation, it's tough. It's tough on the heart, it's tough on the mind, it's tough on the soul. you have things that you're going on in your head, and you're not sure if those things make any sense. You're desperately trying to do stuff. You're trying for this, that, and the other thing, but it's just not working. That's the power of community. That's the power of being with people that can support you in some way, shape, or form. I don't know anyone who has not been successful in some way, and you can look it up, that has done this alone. Even authors that have been successful needed some sort of community to support their ideas, get their feedback on their books, get their feedback on their writing. Just understand who they are. Understand the struggle that they go through. And I'm grateful to have that. And not that, and again, I don't have anything harmful to say about the city of Kamloops. It's a fine city. If you live in Kamloops and listen to this podcast, I have no problem with that. For me, the opportunity was here in Vancouver. And there was certainly a learning opportunity there. And I'm grateful for the learning opportunity, and I'm grateful to be back here to get back going. So my point is that there'll be a lot more podcasts and things that we can do and talk about now that I'm back moving towards being on feet. In 2019, you can expect a new website because we're working on that. And if there is opportunities if you want to support, then that's great. We will also be doing some podcasts, how to start a podcast. We'll be talking about some of those perceptions as well. We'll be doing that probably twice a month. It'll be an opportunity for you to learn from my mistakes or my perspective about that. So if you're interested in that, I've done that more. I'm going to be doing it more in a small group format. So I'm going to limit that to 10 people per session. And we'll just have it as a discussion because I believe that when people learn by discussion, they do better. I've seen some of them and some of the bigger ones with a lot of people, and it's hard for someone to answer all of your questions. So we'll be going through that as we go through that as well. So you can follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE, Spreaker.com, KEVOLE, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and iTunes also carries Now Agree or Disagree the podcast. You're probably listening to this on Wednesday, 97.9 radio in there. So check that out and check out all the shows there that you wish to have. They have a number of them on the schedule. And Facebook, Agree or Kevin Olenek, Instagram, and much more. I totally thank you very much for taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Have a great holiday, whatever you celebrate. And we'll talk next week. Bye for now. And we'll listen to a little bit more of Baby It's Cold Outside. Since it's now okay to play. Here we go.
I really can't stay.
Baby, it's cold outside.
I've got to go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
This evening has
Been
been
hoping that you'd drop
so
me.
very nice.
I'll hold your hand. They're just like
My
ice.
mother will start to worry.
Beautiful, what's your
Father will be pacing the floor.
Listen to the fireplace
It's
roar.
really hot, better scurry.
Beautiful, please don't
Maybe
hurry.
just a little drink more.
Put some records on while I pull.
The neighbors might
But baby, it's bad out there.
say what's in this
No
drink.
cabs to be had out there.
I wish I knew
Your
how
eyes like stars
to
like
break the spell.
I'll take your hat. Your hair looks
I ought to say no, senor. At least I'm going to say that I tried.
The sense of hurting my
I really
pride.
can't
Oh,
stay.
baby, don't hold out.
Oh,
Baby,
but it's
it's cold
cold
outside.
outside. You simply must go.
Baby, it's cold outside.
The answer is
But
no.
baby, it's cold outside.
The greeting has been
Lucky that I dropped
so
in.
nice and warm.
Look out the window at that
Your
door.
sister will be suspicious.
Your lips look
Your
delicious.
brother will be there at the door.
Waves upon a tropical shore.
Your maiden aunt's mind is
Gosh,
vicious.
your lips are delicious.
Maybe just a cigarette
Never
more.
such a blizzard
You've
before.
got to go
But
home.
baby, I'd freeze out there.
I'll lend you my
It's
comb.
up to my knees out there.
You've really been grand,
Thrill when you touch me.
but don't you see?
How can you do this thing to
There's
me?
bound to be talk tomorrow.
Think of your lifelong
At least there will be plenty
If I
implied.
caught pneumonia and
Really
died,
can't
get
say.
over that old doubt,
Oh,
baby,
but it's
it's cold
cold outside.